Hello auditors, welcome back to my channel. So today I will dive into revenue topic because this is the one which is tested the most, and as you will be getting the familiar with the AAA, you will be seeing more of the IFRS15 and revenue audit risk. Why this occurs so frequently? As why you are seeing revenue all the time and in such a critical way that you have to act like Sherlock Holmes to just take your professional skepticism and try to identify what are the risks, why this revenue has been overstated, or why this revenue is being involved in this fraudulent activity. So see, a company will always try to keep his revenue high. No one will give their revenue to be as low. They will always try to show their revenue as high as possible. So they will maybe try to avoid, the liabilities, or may avoid to hide the provision somewhere else. Like there are a question in which they had put the liability things or expensing into heading of other expenses. So this is not correct, because you have to see like whether really these expenses are for other expenses. In that question, those were not to be categorized as other expenses, so the treatment was totally wrong. The management has taken it as a stunt, you can say. Yes, because they trying to mislead the financial statements in order to present their financial as more lucrative, more attractive to the shareholders. So you can see in my screen, this is the case with the PwC, where PwC gets into the spotlight of Chinese authorities in order when the Chinese authorities investigate about the fraud of revenue found in some of the companies which has been audited by PwC. So why PwC gets into the spotlight? Because the Chinese authorities investigated and they asked the auditors why they weren't able to report this fraud, because they found on the investigation that the revenue was overstated. So why the auditors weren't able to catch it? See, now here you have to first point out the materiality in the question, which you have been calculated at the beginning of the question when you have just started the question. So firstly you have to identify the materiality, mention the materiality first, then you will come up to the IFRS 15, indicate how the IFRS 15 is not being followed. See, there can be a lot of indicators in a questions, like revenue is being overstated by the company. The company has overstated the revenue by recording the sales in advance. What I mean by recording in advance, like in IFRS 15 it is mentioned that a sale can be recorded when the performance obligation has been met, right? So what a company will be doing, they will record the sales when they have just given the right, or just the goods have been transferred, like that the performance obligation has not met in that case. I'm not able to recall any example right now of that thing, but you will get these kind of things in question very clearly when you can see that yes, a performance obligation is not being fulfilled and still the company has recorded the sale on the spot. You can say it as an advance sale. So this will what you can see that the revenue will overstate, because it has to be recorded at some other point of time but is recorded in more advance. So this will hike the revenue. I can take an example of the recent news. You can see here is, this is an example of Airtel company. It's not a fraud case. I'm just taking the example, like if you get these kind of things in the question, you have to see the indicators of the auditors, because as an auditor what you have to do is exercise professional skepticism, right? So in this case they have mentioned that the company's revenue has been right by a significant percentage. So when you get these kind of things in your question, that the revenue is increased by a significant percentage, you will have to see the indicators that what are the mentioned for this hike? Are they genuine, or they are just to show the revenue hike lucrative to shareholders, to attract to the shareholders? You have to see these indicators in your questions, because there can be many reasons that maybe the company has just given an unreasonable thing. So these can be identified by putting on the audit procedures, like checking the barcode scanner and then tracing the audit trails, so that you can get all the transaction records. You can reconcile with the invoices or GRN, that is goods received notes, etc., etc. So there are number of procedures that you have to mention in the question, that yes, auditor will perform these procedures. Once you identify the risk, you have to explain the risk, how it is impacting. Then the question will mention to put on the procedures also for that. So there are various procedures you can write with regard to, always keep in this mind that always with regard to assertion, because when these kind of things come like revenue, you have to relate them with the assertions. I will try to cover up these in the upcoming sessions, but for now I will be stopping at here only. So this is another case of Accentures. You will get into the forecasting questions also, where you have been given the forecasted cash flow. So this you can see the Accenture, they had mentioned that the sales growth has been for more than above the estimate. So in these kind of questions, you always have to identify the indicators, that whether the company's revenue is genuinely increasing, or they has been just presented or in a misleading way to misguide the financials. There can be number of indicators. In question you are given at least 3 years of data, then you have to do the analytical calculation, the ratio, so that you can analyze the data, that whether these percentages of increasing are genuine or not, or the other things like loan, borrowings, are they affecting, or the company is growing or not. These are the various things you have to see for the revenue genuineness. This is a brownie tip for you all, that when these kind of cases come, like I have mentioned that PwC case, that it get into the spotlight of being fraud not identified by them. So the Chinese authorities will impose a lot of penalties. So first thing, penalties will be imposed. You have to mention this thing in the question, that penalties will be imposed. If the indicators are being there in the question, it's not necessary, depending upon the how much marks are allocated to that question. Okay, I'm just telling you in general, if you see these kind of things, or there is a high weightage for that question, first, penalties will be imposed. Second, the reputation of the company will be harmed at a large scale. The second one is the major risk, because company's reputation will be damaged. You can write this in the business risk also, that the company's reputation will be affected by this. And for the penalties, you have to bring on the provision or contingent liability. That are the separate cases. I am not going into that for this session. And for upcoming session, I will try to bring more details about the revenue recognition or revenue risk and the related things. So I hope this session will be helpful for you to get the tricky areas of your AAA and your risk of revenue, because this comes a lot. You can see the audit risk of revenue in any of those 3 questions in your exam. This can come in any one. It's not like it will come only question 1, or it will come only in the question 2 where we have to put on the evidence. No, nothing like that. Revenue can come in anywhere. Thanks for watching this video. If you found this useful, share, like, comment, etc., etc. जो मत भी करना चाहें, but do let me know if what further topics you found it difficult, that I can help with that. Okay, so bye and all the best again.